Okay guys, we're going to review for your chemistry test. Number 1 says fill in the location, charges, and masses of the subatomic particles. There are only 3 subatomic particles in an atom. Those are your protons, which has a charge of positive. This would be the nucleus. It has a positive charge and it has a mass of 1 AMU. The next subatomic particle is the neutron. It's also in the nucleus. It has a no charge or 0 charge. It also has a mass of 1 AMU. And the electron. This is in the electron cloud or the orbital or the shell or the rings. Whichever you'd like. They have many, many names for them. It has a negative charge and it has a mass of 0 AMU. It truly is this. So you might see this another time, but this is so small, it's like 0.00005 something 3, that it's so small that they just say it is 0. Number 2 says, how do you find the mass of an atom? That is the mass number. So for the mass number, there's only one thing that you need to do, and that's protons, which they will either give you the protons or the electrons, same number, plus neutrons equals the mass number. Now this is different from the atomic mass that is on the periodic table, so they will give you either protons and neutrons and you have to get the mass, or they'll give you the mass number and the name of the element, which is the identity of the proton. So they'll give you 2 of these and you have to find the other. All right, number 3 says, what 2 subatomic particles make up the nucleus? The nucleus is composed of protons and neutrons. And again, because both of those have a mass of 1 AMU each, however many protons plus neutrons there are is the mass. And again, that's all the mass is located in the nucleus. The electrons are the only thing that is not located in the nucleus, and those are so small anyway. Oh, sorry. And then it says, what is the overall charge of the nucleus? Well, if we're consistent of protons, which are positive, and neutrons, which are no charge, the overall mass is going to, the overall charge of the nucleus is going to be positive.
Okay, number 4. Label the location of the metals, metalloids, and nonmetals on the periodic table. Give at least 3 characteristics for each category. All right, our metals are going to be located on the left side of the periodic table. It's going to be aluminum, which is right here, and then all of these that are not touching the stair-step line are going to be all, with the exception of hydrogen, of course, and these as well. These are all going to be your metals. And one characteristic of metals is that they are shiny, malleable, and good conductors of heat and electricity. Then we have, touching the stair-step line, we have the metalloids. These are going to be your semiconductors, which means that they conduct sometimes under certain situations. They are also shiny, but instead of being malleable and brittle like malleable and ductile like your metals, they are brittle. And then last over here, of course, we have our non-metals, which is also including hydrogen over there. Non-metals are most of them are gas, but the ones that are not gas are going to be dull, brittle, and poor conductors, or also called insulators. Okay, number 5. Where would you find the elements with similar properties located on the periodic table? Well, we know that the groups or families give us the number of valence electrons. We also know that the valence electrons determine reactivity. So, in order to locate elements with similar properties, you have to look at the groups have elements with similar properties.
Okay, number 6. What does the group tell us about an atom? Well, just like we said earlier, the group is the same as also known as families. Families tell us the number of valence electrons. It's kind of like what we said. You look like you're members of your families because you share the same DNA. Well, DNA is equivalent to their valence electrons. And there are 18 groups on the periodic table. However, those valence electrons, we look for that little A number actually it's the other way around, number A. So, for instance, group 15, right underneath group 15, it would have 5A. So that tells us that we have 5 valence electrons. Number 7, what 2 pieces of information does the atomic number tell us? The atomic number is, if we have this is a tile of boron, this is the atomic number, and that also is equal to the number of protons. And this tells us the identity of an atom, the ID, and it also equals the number of electrons. So in this case, for boron, its atomic number is 5, so I have 5 protons, and I have 5 electrons. Finally, number 8, what are valence electrons and what do they tell us about an atom? Valence electrons are the electrons on the outermost energy level. Outermost energy level. These are available for the bonding to make new compounds and such. So these are the ones available for bonding. They tell us valence electrons determine reactivity, how reactive an element is. The closer they get to 8, the closer they get to 8, that's their whole goal. They want to get to 8. They can either do that by losing their valence electrons, so like groups 1 and 2 lose their valence electrons, they give them away. Groups 6 and 7, they gain those electrons. So the closer they are to either losing them or gaining them to 8, the more reactive they are.
Okay, number 9. How many periods are there on the periodic table, and what do the periods tell you about the atom? There are 7 periods on the periodic table, and the periods, they go side to side. Those are our periods. And the periods, the period number tells us the number of shells, electron orbitals, energy levels, any of those things that you like to call it. Number 10, what is the mass number of calcium if it has 20 neutrons? Okay, so calcium's atomic number is 20. So that means it has 20 protons. It's telling us in the problem it has 20 neutrons, so we're going to add the neutrons, giving us a mass of 40 AMU for this calcium atom. Number 11, what elements would have similar properties to sulfur? If you go to your periodic table, you're going to look at sulfur. Sulfur is in group 6A, which means every atom in this, every element in this group has 6 valence electrons. So all of them will have all of them will have similar properties to sulfur. That includes oxygen, selenium, tellurium, and polonium. All of them will have 6 valence electrons, which means they will be seeking to gain 2 electrons in order to fill their outer shell.
Number 12, which subatomic particle gives an element its identity on the periodic table? Again, anytime you think of subatomic particles, there are only 3 options. There's protons, there's electrons, and there's neutrons. We should know by now that protons determine the identity of the atom. There's an entire TEK dedicated to this, so make sure you are aware on that one. Protons determine identity. If you change the number of protons, it changes into a different element. Okay, number 13, compare the following Bohr models and answer the following questions. Okay, by looking at this and knowing that this determines the identity, 12 protons right here, so I can look on the periodic table and know that number 12 is magnesium. All right, so because protons determine the identity, it is also the atomic number. Protons always equals electrons, and in order to figure out my mass is my protons plus my neutrons right here, so that my mass is going to be 24. So 12 plus what? And it actually gave it to us in the problem itself. Number of valence electrons, those are my outside ones. So I've got 1 and 2, which makes sense because this is in group 2. So I've got 2 valence electrons. And magnesium is more or less reactive than nitrogen. Nitrogen is on group number 15. And so that has that actually has to gain 3 in order to get to 8. This one has to lose 2. So magnesium is more reactive because easier to lose 2 electrons than gain 3.
Okay, so this last one is a nitrogen atom. Unfortunately, on your paper, the wrong image was put. We accidentally gave you another magnesium atom. So if on the bottom here, if you would copy the atom that we have there for you, which is 7 protons, 7 neutrons, 2 shells, and a total of 7 electrons. So we go up here, we've got 7 protons, that's from the information in the atom. We have 7 electrons, and we have 7 neutrons, which means the atomic number for this atom is 7. It's going to be the same as the protons. The mass is going to be the protons plus the neutrons, so it would be 14. The valence electrons is 5. We can count them, and that makes sense. If you look on the periodic table, nitrogen is in group 15 or 5A. Nitrogen is more or less reactive than magnesium. Well, nitrogen being in 5A means it has to gain 3 electrons in order to get that full outer shell, while magnesium is in group 2, so it only has to lose 2 electrons in order to be happy with its outer shell. And so then the nitrogen is going to be less reactive because it is harder to gain 3 electrons than lose 2 electrons.
Hey guys, if you can also make sure that you get this signed by your parents and return to us no later than the day of the test, which is on Wednesday, we will give you 10 points extra credit on your test. They are going to be 20 questions, so 5 points apiece. So that will really, really help you. All right, good luck. Study hard.